So
I got someone like that for third.
Okay. I'm going to tell the story of how I went on a 2-mile hike while on crutches. So my freshman year of high school, I had knee surgery. It was my second knee surgery at the time. A tibial tubercle osteotomy, which is used to treat patellar instability, which is a fancy way to say that my kneecap kept dislocating, so they rearranged the bones about it. And they had to put in screws. So I was on crutches for 3 months, and I had to wear a leg brace that went from my thigh to my calf. And the crutches were annoying, and the brace was uncomfortable, and by the 3rd month, I was going absolutely crazy. So halfway through the 3rd month, my earth science teacher, Mrs. Brown, whose daughter was named Charlie, like actually she named her daughter Charlie. It's not important, but it does tell you a lot about her character. So she announced a field trip. We were going to a state park an hour and a half away, and we were going to hike its most popular trail. So she walked around the classroom, and she was handing out the permission slips, and she hesitated by my desk because it was a very physical field trip, so obviously I would not be going. But she couldn't just skip over me because that would be rude, but she couldn't give me a permission slip because I would obviously not be going on this hiking field trip. I was on crutches and had a leg brace. But so she hesitated because like, should she talk to me about it then? Should she just skip over me? She didn't know what to do, so she just looked at me, and then I told her, I'm going. There was no room for argument. I was a shitty, headstrong little 14-year-old, and I was sick to death of crutches and not being able to do anything I like to do, so I held out my hand for a permission slip for our hiking field trip. And my best friend, who was sitting next to me at the time, looked at me like I was absolutely insane, because I was. So when my mom got home from work that night, I handed her the slip and I said, we're going hiking. And she said, what are you going to do? Well, I told her, I'm going hiking. She reminded me that I was on crutches, as if I could forget, and she told me my knee was still healing, and this could set it back, and she didn't think it was a very good idea. And because I was 14 years old, I did not throw a tantrum. But because I was my mother's daughter, I argued. Eventually, and I do not remember how, I convinced her to let me go. She did tell me if I hurt my knee and if I needed surgery again, she was not going to be the one paying for it. But that was as close to a yes as I could hope for. So I turned in my permission slip, and Miss Brown, who had a daughter named Charlie, I do need to reiterate that, she reluctantly accepted it. She did make me have my mom sign it, and both of us acknowledged the risks of me going on the field trip, so I wouldn't sue the school or anything. So the day of the field trip, I boarded the school bus, and we drove the hour and a half to the trail. And we all arrived, and we got off the bus, 32 students and 2 teachers, and we all started towards the trail. So at this point, I was a pro on crutches. This was not my first time on crutches. This was not even my 3rd time on crutches. But we got to the start of the trail, and it was uphill. It was a steep hill, and it had rained the night before a lot, so it was incredibly muddy, and kids who weren't on crutches were starting to regret agreeing to come on the trip. So it was uphill, it was muddy, and it was 2 miles long. And Miss Brown looked at me, and she gave me an out. I could sit out and I could stay on the bus, but I was already there, so for the very first part of the trail, Miss Brown stayed directly in front of me, while the other science teacher stayed directly behind me. I mean, I knew why they were doing it. It's so they could catch me if I slipped and fell, and I wouldn't sue the school. But it was really claustrophobic and frustrating. But I finally got to the crest of the first hill, and so once they saw I probably wouldn't fall and die, Miss Brown and all of the other students just left me behind. 4 of my friends did stay by my side. So I hiked slowly, obviously I was on crutches, but considering how good I had become on crutches, not as slow as I'm assuming you're imagining. Slow enough though that the other chaperone, who had been bringing up the rear while Miss Brown led the group, decided we were probably fine and she just left us like on the trail. Which she wasn't supposed to do, but she was a very unorthodox teacher anyways, so it was fine. So my friends and I laughed that she left us, and we continued, and I continued, one crutch in front of the other. And we tripped over roots and slipped on loose dirt, but every time I stumbled, my friends rushed to grab me, and I never fell. So at the end of the trail, a long 2 miles, rocky and muddy and just kind of awful, there was a long set of stairs. It was as if the world was saying, oh, you came this far, go a little further. I could not catch a break. But I had gone that far, and the only way down was forward. So I took a breath and I tightened my grip on my crutches, which were absolutely caked in mud at this point, and I started down the stairs one at a time. At the bottom of the stairs, my classmates and teachers clapped for me, and I cried because it was very embarrassing, and I wish they had not done that. But I thought to myself, hey, I did it. So in college and in life, I get stuck a lot. Writer's block, friend drama, stress in general, and it all piles up, and it feels like the end of the world. But I think of that stupid staircase, and I think to myself, I came this far, go a little further.